the next stage of dharana. And then the eighth stage is the object of meditation loses all its counterparts. It exists only as an existence. If you are meditating upon the face of your friend, the name of the friend disappears. The friend exists. The nose, the eyes, eyebrows and the crop, they disappear and your friend exists. Every other thing about your friend disappears and your friend exists. As what? As your friend. That is called the totality of existence. If you are meditating upon the candle, the name candle disappears. The candle exists. The shape of the candle disappears. The candle exists. The color of the candle disappears. Candle exists. The flame disappears. The name of the flame disappears. The candle exists. It is a state which should be experienced, which cannot be described in words. If you want to follow the path of the scriptures, taking symbolism as your help, you meditate upon one of the forms of the Lord, that is, one of the incarnations of the Lord. For example, Lord Jesus teaching to his disciples, Lord Krishna teaching to Arjuna, or Lord Buddha teaching to his disciples. You take any one of these forms and apply these states to that form. You will see at first the attractive face of the Lord, the radiant smile, and the happiness that is felt in the disciple. Many details about the Lord you will see, and the process of thinking about him is dropped off, and only two things remained, that is recollection of yourself and the Lord. Then you are dropped off from your recollection and only the Lord remains. Gradually the face of the Lord disappears. The Lord exists. The radiant smile disappears. It disappears to exist as a second thing from the Lord. It disappears into the one Lord. And with all the details of the picture, the details disappear, the name and the shape disappear, all your concepts disappear. Lord exists only as existence. It is the true light that exists in the form of everyone in the world and everything we see around us. But what we were experiencing was our own reactions to the Lord, which make us understand the existence of the world and not the Lord. Now, in the same world, we are prescribed to see the omnipresent, the one Lord. So, only one thing exists as a totality to the absence of a second thing. You can continue that state, in that state, without getting any disturbance, as long as you propose. Because unless you ask the mind to come out once again, it never comes out as the observer separately from the object of observation. That is the state in which you are prescribed to stay, and you are asked to apply it to each and everything in your daily life. That is the next stage. It is called the stage of simultaneous existence of consciousness. That is what we have seen yesterday. In your daily life also, you can live a life of the Lord's light. In the eyes of others, you are doing your duties and you are eating, drinking and doing your job. You are having a body and mind. You are conducting all the daily functions. To you, nothing exists except the Lord's light, because no second thing exists. That is the ultimate truth of this creation, which you also discovered and you also enjoyed. You also approached it, entered it, became a part of it, and living only as a part of the light. That is the object of yoga practice, according to Patanjali and according to Bhagavad Gita. Of course, there are many other yoga textbooks which prescribe many powers and many capabilities to be developed. Patanjali also explains what those powers are and how you come across with them. But Patanjali says these are only your projections upon the Lord, a little bit more purified than when you are in the world of reaction. For example, if you use the power of your sight, you will no more require the eye. You can apply it through space. Similarly, your power to hear, because you have the capability of withdrawing from your sense organs. And remember that senses are different from sense organs. Your sight is the sense. The apparatus of your physical eye is the sense organ. Just as radio is different from the cabin in which a radio is placed. The TV activity is different from the cabin in which the TV is placed. Similarly, the sense is different from the sense organ. Now, you have known how to withdraw the senses from the sense organs and apply the senses through the sense organs only when you want. For example, all the time, even though your eyes are kept open, this thing is not seen by you, and the board is not seen by you, and the piece of wood is not seen by you, because you never asked your eyes to see them. You wanted the mind to do some other work, that is listening to the lecture. You never asked the power of sight to enter through the eyeballs and reach the items that are here. That's the reason why you did not see them all the while, though your eyes are kept open and your mind is alert. A mastery over such a process is gained by yoga practice, so that the withdrawal is not involuntary or sometimes automatic, but it becomes voluntary and you will be the master. This is the end of the aim of the yoga practice, which is not at all the end of yoga science. The real goal of yoga science is to apply this in your daily life. When you are talking to any person, apply this to the speech of that person. You will be listening to what he says, but you will also be listening to what the Lord gives you as a message. Every minute and every second, you will be receiving your message from the Lord, apart from what the person wants from you. Any person talking to you can be helped by you, but through his words, the Lord is giving you his message, and you will be receiving your program every moment. You will begin to know how to follow it, so that you will have no obligations with anyone. You will have something to do for others. You have nothing to get bound by any obligation. So, you can see, you can speak, and you can do things. You are not conditioned, because now your process is not reaction, but only action. Action is from within yourself, whereas previously reaction was from the environment reflected upon your mind. So, you have nothing about what others speak. You have everything about what others need from you. That is the change that takes place. Your actions are sponsored by the needs of others, and not at all by the likes and dislikes of others. Others may speak many things, but you will listen only what they want, what they need. Sometimes they may understand you, sometimes they may misunderstand you. That is an activity of their mind with which you are not at all concerned. You are concerned only with the message you receive from the Lord through the same persons who are speaking to you. That is the one application of yoga practice. This is a part of yoga living. The next thing you have to do is the process of transmutation. That is what Patanjali says. Every one of us is born with some congenital defects, mentally, intellectually, emotionally. We are weak in some respect. We are defective in some respect. We are ugly in some respect. We are harmful to others in some respects. We are teasing and vexing others in some respects. Each one has his own number of defects, the total of which put together decides his stature in this world. This is what is called the level of birth. At every step, the evolution is helping us to become better, but the evolution is fatigued when it has brought us to the level of the human beings. It has much to do to our younger brothers who are evolving through the animal, plant and mineral bodies. It has to shower the same affection towards them that was showered upon us all the while through thousands of years when we travelled through the mineral, plant and animal kingdom. It has brought us to the human kingdom, and it has given us something which it has not given to the other kingdoms. That something is the power to know what is good and what is bad, the power to know what to do and what not to do, and the creative power to better ourselves. Then nature stops with her working. It gives our evolution to our hand. The key is given to the human being, and the automatic evolution does not take place if we have no attempt, and it waits until we take the decision and initiative. That is a crisis which the human being faces. Before one realizes this point, he has to wait and take many rebirths in the same state of mind, with the same fight of the lower nature, same conflict with the world, same displeasure to himself, and no benefit through the span of life. The body grows automatically with age, the mind grows with age, the intellect grows only in experience and not in creative faculty. So, it begins to magnify the routine activity into finer and finer details of routine, and we many times deceive ourselves thinking that we are developing. We work out more and more details in our life, our relationships with people, our impressions about people, our obligations with people, our fears, our complexes, our jealousies, and our glamour for many things. That is the multiplication we get when we are living in the world of reaction. This multiplication continues as long as we have this physical body, and when we are old, we feel the forest developed very dense with many thorny bushes, leaving no path for us to walk in life. And finally, the physical death occurs, and the mind is forced to withdraw into nothingness. If such a device had not been devised by nature, we would have suffered with the continuation of our complexes even after physical death. So, at the end of every physical span, there is a total cut-off of all the forest, and the land is once again kept clean when we take a new body, and when the mind once again makes its appearance in the form of a beautiful flower with 5 petals. Every time the flower comes out from the physical activity, the activity of the brain cells, and we make our own multiplications, and finally the flower is nipped to the stalk, and once again the seed is thrown in the proper soil. But our seed contains all our past history, our tendencies, associations, and the way how we like and dislike. All our logic dies with our physical death, but the seed of our logic exists with us. And once again, when the seed is thrown into the required soil, we will develop into the same tree from the same seed, and we begin to behave in the same way as we behaved in the previous birth. This is what happens whenever we die in reaction. We may die 1,000 times, but we are born only in the same condition, because the same seed is thrown into the soil. This process continues as a repetition, but the inner Lord waits smiling at us until we take a step. Then when we follow the process which is called the Eightfold Yoga Path, there is the end of the cyclic repetition, because the need of the paraphernalia is finished. That is the whole process. The need of the whole process is finished. And now we are left free for ourselves. What we have is only action and no reaction. That action will be in the form of response to the environment, conscious and self-willed, with mastery, and it is not a reaction but a response. Reaction starts from environment, response starts as an answer to the environment. That is the difference. We begin to respond to what others need. We stop to react to what others behave. That's the difference. You are free to make a transmutation of your present birth. For example, if you are born as a baser metal, a lower metal, you can transmute yourself into the nobler metal, like gold, with the help of an intermediary metal, which you can call mercury. That is your intellect. Now your intellect is creative. It transforms the metal of your seed. It makes a transmutation of everything you have into everything you are. That is the lordship. So, the defects that are congenital are cured. Let they be physical or mental or intellectual. It is more difficult to cure intellectual diseases than to cure the physical and mental diseases, because intellectual diseases exist as tendencies, whereas mental diseases exist as moods. Moods can be cured easily, but unless the tendency is cured, the mood recurs once again, and the cure is only a temporary one. Every night we take some medicine to cure the mood, and we deceive the mind to sleep, and the next morning we will awaken only as we are. So, the sleep and awakening are samples of our death and rebirth. Many times we will sleep into death and awaken into a new body with the same tendencies carried in the seed. You can put a stop to this after yoga practice. When you project this idea upon your own existence for a few minutes daily, you will begin to transmute, and within an incredibly short period of 10 years or at the most 12 years, you will find yourself different, and you are freed from congenital defects, congenital weaknesses and tendencies which we liked and therefore which we did not want to part from. The trouble with the intellectual defects is we develop a friendship with our own defect and we don't like to get rid of it. That's the reason of the impossibility of getting it cured. But these things will be automatically cured when we practice yoga. This is another aspect of yoga living. A third aspect of yoga living is, according to Patanjali, that you can work through many physical bodies. Of course, this is wrongly and mystically understood by many commentators, that the yogi develops powers in creating many bodies for himself. With one body drinking and eating, with another body enjoying sex in whatever he want, in another body working in politics and trying to be a minister, in another body working as a yogi, receiving presents from disciples, and in another body for himself, his wife and children. That is something nonsense. But what Patanjali means is that you can work through the bodies of others for the betterment of humanity. Because when you begin to work for humanity, you will find that time is very limited and physical body is a very serious limitation. It can attend only at one place and do only one plane of work. So, there comes a time when time is not sufficient for you to work for humanity. Had you been in the reaction condition, you would have become crazy and mad, because all the 24 hours you are surrounded by people, everyone wanting something from you different from the other, and within a short period of 10 years, you would have gone into self-pity, that is thinking that you have no time to live, that you are not cared for, that you are overworked, and that time is not sufficient for you to work. But now there is no possibility of going into such a crazy and insane mood, because everything is sweet now, because there is no second thing to exist except the Lord. In anyone around you, you will see only the Lord. Not only in your friends and your sweet wife, but also in those whom you call your enemies, and those whom others call ugly, and whom others call evil people, bad people, harmful ones. In all those people, you will see the existence of the Lord, and you have nothing to do with their behavior except to enjoy the drama of creation, the Lord existing in so many forms. So, the next step is to work through many bodies. That means you can make your presence true with anyone you want, but be careful not to infringe with the rights of anyone. Everyone has a right to live according to his own liking, and you have no moral right to suggest to him this is not the way how to live. If anyone is living what you call impious life, or ignorant life, or life of faults and defects, he is rejoicing in his own life, just as you are rejoicing in your own life in the name of yoga. Who is correct? You are not the judge, because the evolution includes all these stages, and we are not right to say that the yogi is far much advanced in evolution. So, according to the science of yoga and according to the path of the masters of wisdom, we have no right to interfere with the likes and dislikes of anyone, unless the other fellow seeks your advice and help. You can help anyone, but you have no business to interfere with what he likes. Don't cut it off and suggest what you think good. That is something political. we have no right to do so. So, wait for people who want you, who want your suggestions, who want your corrections, who want your spiritual help, intellectual help, and mental help. Physical help you can do to anyone. Whatever you have at hand, you can give to anyone who needs it. Because now you have known the fact that when you give one, you will get two. Because nature knows that you give and you do not keep for yourself. For the first time, you will grow confidence that nature has a mind. For the first time, you will know that it is not a superstition. Not only art, not only material objects, not only money, but also thoughts, ideals and ideas. You will every time completely empty your heart, giving out whatever you know as good, without keeping something for yourself. In such a case, you will be given double the quantity of what you know next time. Unless we come to know this fact in nature, we live in want and poverty of thought. Until we know this, we are haunted with poverty. If we have a caution for ourselves, something is denied for us. So caution is only to preserve the physical bodies and to preserve good habits, and it has no place afterwards. So when you find that people want something from you, don't listen to what they want. Don't listen to what they desire, or what they argue, or what they like, but understand what they need and what they want. Since you are in no obligation with them, you have no business to listen to what they argue. You have a business to know what they want and need. You will have a silent way of doing things. You may be speaking and speaking vocally, but you will be quite silent about what you mean. You need not speak out or make an advertisement of your goodness. You need not say, I want to do you good and all that. But be firm and stick to your own procedure. This is the way in which you have to behave with all those who do not want the higher things from you. Then you have the physical things to shower upon them. They are children and they want sometimes some money, sometimes something to eat, and sometimes some way of living, and sometimes some thoughts, sometimes some kind words, sometimes a smile. Be charitable in all these things, because you need not purchase these things. Kind words, good smile, and good way of speaking to people. Spend these things lavishly. Every time empty your box for all those who do not want the higher things from you. But people come to you who really want the higher things. That is what Patanjali says in the end of his book. They do not want happiness from you. They do not demand that you should give them some food or shelter or some way of living.